Right. Hi, Chiara. Thanks for meeting with me. I guess we're going to speak about how you have just been successful in applying to the NIHR Doctoral Fellowship round 5. So it'll be great to hear more about your research, your interests, and how you found the whole process. So yeah, firstly, I just wanted to ask, like, what are your main research interests?
Thank you for having me. So I'm mostly interested in, I think, what is called the upstream determinants of health. So that's social determinants of health, the environment, the environmental determinants of health, and commercial determinants of health. So I'm also interested in health inequality. So in my research, I'm mainly looking at policies that can either modify the environment in which people live, or the social aspects of their lives, so for example, employment, housing, those kind of things. So it's mostly upstream factors that can influence health and health inequalities.
That sounds really interesting. And can I ask what attracted you to, come on to this to the SPHR Pre-doctoral Fellowship program?
Yes, so I studied in the Netherlands. I'm Dutch, so I did my master's there. And when I did my master's, I realized that I wanted to have an academic career, so I wanted to do a PhD. But in the Netherlands, I couldn't really find a university that did, or a professor that did exactly what I wanted to do. So looking a bit more internationally, I found that in the UK, there were actually a lot of universities that do public health. So SPHR is kind of one of these research institutes that does it. So I kind of figured that I wanted to go to the UK. Obviously, being in the Netherlands, it was a bit hard to directly apply for a PhD, and also felt I didn't necessarily have a lot of research experience yet coming from my master's. So that's why I decided to apply for the pre-doctoral fellowship that would really allow me to, first of all, understand the UK system, the English system, and public health in England before applying for a PhD, but also to build on my research skills.
Oh, that's great, thank you. Can I ask what masters was it that you was doing?
Yeah, so my master's was in health and society. So it's public health, but it was very interdisciplinary. So it was really looking at the intersections between social sciences and natural sciences or life sciences. So that's what I did back in the Netherlands.
Oh, that's great, thanks. And then now you've successfully applied for the pre-doctoral fellowship, and now whilst doing your pre-doc with us, how, what's that involved for you?
Yeah, so I started my pre-doc in January 2020. So I did get to go to the office and to see my colleagues. So at the beginning, we just decided that I would, they told me about the project that they were involved in, and which I could also be part of. So I kind of set some priorities and some projects that I wanted to work on with my supervisor. So I started out working on some existing SPHR projects to start with, and then slowly, when kind of understood better what I wanted to do myself, I also started doing my own research, which was kind of a document analysis, and I did that together with people I was working with at SPHR. So then now it's a bit of a mix of my own research, which then prepared me to apply for a PhD, as well as working on some SPHR projects. So I'm actually right now mostly working on SPHR projects, but I also had the chance to kind of develop my own little study.
That's brilliant. Yeah, that's really, really good. And what would you say your highlights been from the last? I know it's probably been so tough with everything that's going on, but what has there been a highlight, and what has it been?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously the highlight is the fact that I have been able to secure a PhD doctoral fellowship for next year. But I think in my pre-doctoral fellowship itself, I think when I published my first paper in the pre-doctoral fellowship, that was I think that was a highlight, and also I've participated in some conferences, and that was also quite exciting.
That's good. And what would you give, you know, is there any advice you'd give to other people who are thinking about applying for a pre-doctoral fellowship, or they, you know, they're doing their masters and they'd like to do a PhD, and just others in that position? Is there any advice you'd give to them?
Yeah, so if you're thinking of doing a PhD and you're doing your master's, I mean, I think it really depends, because I really wanted to develop my own PhD project. So I knew that in order to get funding for that, you need a bit more research experience and to apply, but also for yourself. It's hard to develop a project from scratch. So I think in that case, it would be very helpful to do a pre-doctoral fellowship, especially if you also don't know exactly what you want to do the project on, or if you don't really have relationships with people that could be your supervisors. So I think that it would be very useful, and that's what I did. I would recommend to really look into what research institute you want to do it at, because you'll be based there and you'll be directly working with your supervisors there. So I think it's important to pick the school that does research that speaks to you, as well as maybe try to look at what professors are there. So maybe you can also base it on the people, because they could be your PhD supervisors at some point.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess one of the things, like, we've heard quite a bit is how people who are doing, you know, in a fellowship position or something and working from home and remotely at the moment, and one of the challenges has been, you know, networking and building those relationships and contacts with other people, which is, you know, it's really important for this stage in your career. And I just wondered how you've dealt with that.
Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, I did start in January, so I had the chance to meet my colleagues. So I was at the office for about 3 months. So that was quite important, I think, because then when everything went online, I kind of already had those relationships. So it was not, I mean, I can imagine that it's harder if you've never met the people, and then all of a sudden you're meeting them through Zoom, that it can be a bit awkward, and maybe you're also less confident to maybe just email them with your questions. I felt that knowing them personally was very helpful, but no, obviously working from home is not ideal, because I think that even though most of my work, I have been able to do it online, except for some, I mean, obviously you cannot do in-person data collection, that kind of things, but I think the thing that affected me most was just not being able to ask casual questions or just to chat with colleagues. Luckily, we do have team meetings, and I've also we also organized meetings with the other pre-doctoral fellows. So we have bi-weekly meetings where we can just talk about research, or just have a bit of a more social chat.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that. And now moving on to your the fellowship that you've just secured. So congratulations again. And I just wondered if you could, you know, let us know how you've found the process of applying for the fellowship.
Sorry. Yeah, I think I applied for the NIHR Doctoral Fellowship, and it's a very long process. It's a very big application. So I think, yeah, I mean, it has obviously been hard to do that next to other responsibilities, and luckily my supervisor was very accommodating, so I did have the time to dedicate well, most of my time really for a couple of months on writing this application, because there's a lot that goes into it, not only the research but also the sections about yourself, the research costing, so it has been quite stressful as well at times, because this is something that I have never done before, but in the end, I think it was good when the application was done, to see what I've been able to put on paper, and to have my project in front of me.
Yeah, and with you, you've created that project like from your ideas and your contacts. So how is there any advice you'd give to other people who are, you know, who are at this stage right now when they're putting in for an application? Is there anything you found really helpful throughout this process?
Yeah, so I would definitely start early. I think start earlier than you think, maybe even 6 months. I mean, obviously just developing your research ideas. So there are also some internal processes that I was not aware of when I started my application, but they also take a lot of time because there's a lot of people internally that have to approve your application. So definitely start the internal process early as well. Another thing that really helped me was that, well, it was part of my application process at the research institute I'm at, but there's this proposal review workshop where senior academics read your proposal and then they comment on it. So if that's not something at your university, you might just try to contact some other people outside of your research team that maybe don't necessarily have the topic expertise, that are working in different fields, for them to read your application, and they can make sure that it's clear and also understandable for people that don't do research in exactly the field you're doing research in.
Yeah, so that's a really, really helpful, you know, tip to give. And in terms of once you got, you know, you got through the application stage and you were told you had an interview, was there anything at that point that was really helpful for you in prepping for that?
Yeah, so I think the most helpful thing was doing mock interviews. So I had one mock interview with my supervisors, and then another mock interview that was with 2 other academics at the school, which again, they were not doing research in exactly the same topic. So it was very good because I did know that my panel was mostly academics that were working in different fields of health. So I already knew going into it that they are not public health experts, and that they also wouldn't necessarily be expert in the methodologies I plan to use. So it was very good to have a mock interview with some people that were not my supervisors and not in public health as well. Another thing I did was that I organized a call with someone that was on the panel, and this person was at my university, so he was not on my personal panel, he was on the panel in general, and he obviously is not able to give me very specific tips, but it's just very helpful to speak to someone that well, does this, and to kind of understand what is important and how to kind of sell your project and yourself. So I think that's very useful.
Oh, that's great, thank you. And yes, this is great. And you're looking to start, when's this?
In January. So that's exactly when my pre-doctoral fellowship ends. I want to start my next one.
That's amazing. Well, congratulations and best of luck with it. And thank you for taking the time to share your story.
Thanks.